I meant Everett. We called it F. And Ed was not a particularly religious person, but he was the kind of guy that would take the shirt off his back and give it to you if you needed it. He was very thoughtful. And I didn't know him very long, but enough to I love him. We're aware that we live and move and have our being in the presence of divine love, in the house of the Lord forever. This presence of God surrounds us, indwells us, unites us, it sustains us, it inspires us, it illumines us. Love is the action of God in our lives, meeting our every need. In the light of this love, we see that life is an eternal adventure, ever unfolding in new and greater experiences. And so we accept the reality of our oneness with good, knowing that there can be no separation from the truth. We affirm by our presence here that the experience in called death is not an end, but a new beginning, a transition to a higher sphere of life and action. And we thank you, Father, for the inward conviction that this is so, and so it is. I like to think of Everett as taking a cruise to a beautiful new experience, which is going to enrich his life, enrich his soul, and he's going out.
You're using
Everett, yeah. Well, and my husband, yes, your husband, my husband. Oh, okay.
We love you.
I thought you were talking about the fact.
I understand. I really do. I want to talk about, just a minute. He was a sales rep for Union Oil for 35 years. And he retired early because they offered him full retirement benefits. And so he was retired for almost as long as he worked for Union Oil, for 31 years. And hunter, fisherman. I love this story about him. He was a regular at Matt's Sports Bar and is now hanging at their Hall of Shame. That's because he was in there constantly. He got in there in the beginning, of course, taking clients in there. It was a wonderful place to go and watch sports and everything. And when they're so often, I think they named a chair after him. They gave him a picture on the wall. And,
That's true. Yes, true.
and I want to acknowledge Margaret, who once in a while just thinks differently than the rest of us, but she's a wonderful person. And we also have LeeAnn and two other daughters here. That's Jolynn and Gina. Jolynn.
Joe, I found her here.
And Gina's over there.
Back in the shadows. And then we have this tiny one, 1 month old.
Yeah, my grandson.
Yes, my grandson.
Your grandson.
Margaret's great grandson.
My babies are at a great age. Right where I love them at.
Weston. And his second name, now wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Weston's second name, just in case there's someone who doesn't know, it's Chaos. It's spelled K-A-O-S, so we won't be embarrassed later in life much. It doesn't mean they sue. I would like to ask you, I'm sure there's some folks here who would like to say a few words about Everett. And could we have you just kind of raise your hand first so we don't all talk at once? Just want to say a few words about Everett as you move? Raise your hand, please. All right, I'm going to get you it first. Just stand up.
Okay, I'm not a speaker, so I have to read. So here we go.
This is my friend Cindy, everybody.
Say.
Cindy has been a friend of mine since
And Mom and Dad see Cindy as another daughter.
That's right, I'm very close.
Precisely.
She looks like she's 50.
So I've been friends with the Pease family since I met Joe in the 8th grade. Because as a kid, I remember Mr. Pease as being loud and lively and funny. But in our adult years, my opinion didn't change in him, but I kind of grew to appreciate him even more because I understood more of his humor and appreciating him as my friend rather than my friend's funny dad. My husband also really enjoyed Mr. and Mrs. Pease because I think he could relate to Mr. Pease's humor and outgoing nature as he was the same himself. He would often visit the Pease family after his weekly visits to his mom's house. I remember one time being worried that my husband was very late getting home from his mom's. When I called, his mom said, "Oh, he had left like an hour or two ago." I was like, wow, it's a work night and he should have been home. And finally I thought, I wonder if he went by the Pease's house. So sure enough, hey, bye.
We're just having a little service in here.
This is a granddaughter.
Oh, well, hello there.
This is Kate, Weston's
mother.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is your mother's studio. Chaos.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So sure enough, I call and I talk to Mrs. Pease and she's like, "Oh yeah, he was here. He just left, Well, come to find out, he would leave his mom's house and go by the Pease house many times because he just really enjoyed being with them. And you told me you enjoyed being with him too, but who knows? For me, I have a lot of wonderful memories growing up with this family, but there's a few standouts that are that kind of will forever be in my mind. The first time was when we were all playing charades. And I laugh to this day because Mr. Pease was so animated and raising his arms up and down like this, and this is all he was doing, just doing this. And we're like, what? We're just not getting it, and time's going on and we're still not getting it. He's just getting more, our movements are getting more pronounced, and finally, time ran out and he blurts out, "It was Abraham," like, you guys are idiots. How could you not get this perfectly executed clue I was giving you? And we thought, really? Is that a really good clue? We laughed about this story for years. But on a more tender moment, another time, I really felt blessed was to witness the day that Mrs. Pease came home from the hospital after her heart surgery. Mr. Pease was standing outside the front door, actually in the garage, as the garage door lifted and you guys were pulling in with her. And to see his joy and tearful eyes, to see his beloved wife come home, it was just the most beautiful thing. And I got to see a softer side of him that I hadn't got to see before. And also, I got to see it personally myself in his sensitivity and how he felt about my husband and how he sensitively cared for me after my husband's passing. It's hard to put into words really what he did, but it was the look in his eye and the touch of his hand and just the sense of care that he imparted to me that was, it was just beautiful. Anyway, I have been so lucky as a child to have met this family, led by Mr. Pease, and to know them as an adult as well. How amazing it's been to be a part of their lives and experience Mr. Pease's vibrant and colorful personality. Whenever I see a rainbow, it will always remind me of Mr. Pease and put a smile on my face. He was a great man, and he lives on in his loving wife, his beautiful 3 daughters, and all his loving grandchildren and great-grandchild. Some of whom are known to look like little Evs. So God bless you, Mr. Pease, and keep you, and try to keep it down up there in heaven.
I think you're a marvelous speaker, don't you?
Can I say something about Cindy and Steve? Were always there when Dad was going and Mom was going through so many medical procedures and everything. Steve was dropping by all the time. You guys were the first ones that were there when he went into his care center, and when he was getting ready to go home from the care center, you were there 9 o'clock at night. You guys were there helping us out. And I remember many times that when you'd come over and Steve would just do something like change a light bulb or a filter on the air conditioning or some little thing like that that was hard for us to get time around to do. But he would do all these little honeydews that we needed to have done. And we really enjoyed having the two of you around so much. It's us who are lucky.
And you, sir?
I am a friend of LeeAnn's. I had the fortune of meeting him on about three or four occasions, very briefly, and his wife also. But we were always on the road, and we were traveling to Arizona. So it was a situation where we would leave here, we brought by, say hi, and on our way. So unfortunately, I did not get really get to know him, but I would like to, because his legacy in LeeAnn tells me that he was a fantastic man, fantastic man.
I think you heard a lot about him, Sid, because everywhere we go,
Yeah.
my dad and I were here back in 1963, and my dad and I were here in '68. You know, so
Yeah, and
you
that's
probably
true.
heard
And
more stories about
It
him.
really enhanced. It made the trips a whole lot shorter to start with. It really did enhance
Carry on
every
with
trip
stories.
we went.
That's
Great stories.
That's nice. And you, Mother?
I'm LeeAnn's friend Debbie from high school, and I met her parents probably 42 years ago at this point. When LeeAnn and I were doing the creative writing magazine for the high school, and we assembled it in their garage. And I'm probably the only person in this room that has thought of her father every time in the last 40 years that I have used a stapler. And I don't even remember how this came about. I can only guess we were stapling something, and I made some comments about, oh, it's nice to use a stapler that works because my parents had this thing that probably came over on a Mayflower, and it jammed, like every time you used it. Well, he happened to have some office supplies on the shelf in the garage. He picks up this box with a new stapler and hands it to me and says, here, take this. And I'm like, wow, I was struck at his generosity. You know, here it is, the father of a friend of mine giving me this stapler. I finally retired that stapler about 2 years ago. And every single time I have used that stapler, and now every time that I use some other stapler that isn't that stapler, I have thought about her father and how special he made me feel. Just here, have this. I want you to have this. You've got a stapler that, here, take this. I never expected anything of it. So your dad will be in my thoughts forever, and I do a lot of stapling. I'm an accountant and a tax preparer and a
You
writer.
did his taxes for him
And
for
I
several
did
years.
his taxes. I do a lot of stapling in my life.
And those staplers were probably compliments of Union Oil Company.
I'm sure it was. And if they ever want it back, I still have it. But yes, I did start doing his taxes, and I was the one who got to give him the happy news of you don't have to file tax returns ever again.
He couldn't believe that.
Yeah. So that's
You made him very, very happy.
I will continue to think of your father probably for the rest of my life. Every time I have to say something.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure. Now, who else raised their hand? I'd like to call him a good friend Larry over here, Larry Chebowski, who is really took kind of LeeAnn and Margaret and Everett under his wing and kind of fixed up the house so they could be comfortable, Larry. And on their behalf, I want to thank you for what you've been doing. Want to say a few words about Everett?
Oh, I didn't really get to know him that much, but he always had good words anytime I talk to him. So even though I lived here for the last year, I didn't get to talk to him too much.
He really appreciated all you did, because it wasn't just Larry helped build this room out here that Dad lived in for the last year and a half. He put down all the flooring and the dining room so that Dad would be able to he couldn't walk on carpet, so he could shuffle his way along on the tile and the wood flooring. So Larry put flooring in the dining room and all through the kitchen. It made it really easy for him to get from his chair to the refrigerator, to the bathroom, and his bedroom. It was all wood flooring that Larry put down piece by piece. Many, many hours of getting up and down. Every one of those boards, he had to get down on the ground, put it in, get back up, go down. You know, there was a lot of climbing up and down to put that floor in. So he really appreciated all that you did in putting that room together. And then every morning, Larry leaves early in the morning, so he would get the newspaper and bring it in and set it in Dad's room there for him. And when his back was hurting so badly that it was excruciating just to walk to the bathroom, he really appreciated not having to go out to the front porch to get the newspaper and look for it under the car or wherever the newspaper boy threw it. So Larry became the newspaper boy. And he would, you know, you always call him, hey, where's my newspaper boy? Yeah.
I know you're a great guy. I know all these folks know you're a great guy. Everett really thought you were a great guy. You're so modest and humble. Somebody else over here wants to say a word?
I do.
What?
I'm Dick Simpson's wife, Jerry.
Come on in, Dick.
I'd say that I met Ed 44 years ago, and he installed me in my first service station in Arizona. He's been my rep, my personal friend, and we're all family. And I said this many times, that he put me where I am today. He stood with me thick and thin. And I sold gas in this town for 19.9 gallons. He said, God damn it, go out and let's go. And we did. And the girls know that. We were all family. We get to that cook out back there. They go over 59th Avenue all the time. And Jeff here, our son, he was singing top. He didn't
Yeah. Yeah, we hung out.
And we straight away to Vegas. We took the kids. They stood on the stair step waiting on us to gamble to earn money. They spent more money upstairs than we did downtown. But Ed is the greatest man I ever knew. And he stood by me 100%. He said, I can make you money if you listen to me. If you don't, I'm going to watch you. I'm going to haunt you until you do it. So I'm thinking, you know, I lost my father when I was 32. So you girls are lucky.
We do know, we're very fortunate.
Good man. Great loss to me yet.
One of the best parties he always talked about, the best party of his life was that one that you guys did over in your RV on Burrow Creek.
Oh yeah.
When was that?
What was his birthday today?
I think it was Joe's birthday.
Oh, it was Joe's birthday?
Yeah.
But you guys all had a party. You got in an RV and you were heading to Vegas or something?
Yeah, we went to either Vegas or Laughlin. I don't know.
Laughlin or Vegas.
They never met
We
yet?
stopped in a place called Nowhere, Arizona.
Nothing there.
Okay.
I had a birthday party for Joe, a sister of mine.
Yeah.
And surprised him, we had balloons
They
and
put the
flowers
girls
and everything.
balloons in the cabinets, and we had a burl outside. We had a drink and went on, you know.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
But he always remembered that birthday party. He thought that was the coolest thing, to just stop along the highway there and somewhere.
Joe Gibbons?
Yeah. Yeah.
His wife was not very well. He couldn't even attend. I called him and tried to get him. He said, he just can't.
He was another rep that worked with Union Oil. They worked together, and those guys would, on Friday night, or Friday afternoon, I guess you guys would all get together and say, let's go to Vegas, or let's go to Laughlin. And all of a sudden, Mom was calling looking for a babysitter, and they'd all head off for the weekend. And I don't know how many times you guys did that, but you guys had a good time up there.
We didn't even have to have a reservation. We just stayed up. We just,
Yep.
we find a room, we slept in the closets, we done everything.
Yeah.
And everything just to get by. And we went back home.
The one time we stayed without reservations at a little place called Prince Albert, I think. Prince Albert or something, and it was, talk about flea bagging. It was the only thing we could find, and it was like 2 rooms, and it was a huge closet, and then Margaret took the hideaway bed and put it in the closet. She's the only one that had any privacy at all.
They shut the door, you couldn't get the door, because you closed up the bed. Right? Well, we had a lot of good times. Sure, it's a great family for us. We enjoyed people very much.
We certainly appreciated you guys, that's for sure.
There's something else I want to talk about Everett. A lot of people probably know this. But I thanked him personally because he served in the U.S. Army in the Korean War, and he was a medic.
He was a corpsman in the MASH unit. He actually was a dental specialist, was his specialty was dentistry.
So that's something we can all be grateful to Everett for. Now let's take a deep breath as we kind of release Everett into his new life. And we see a special blessing coming from Margaret, from all of us. Thank you, Margaret. And I want you to have a peaceful life. Father, Mother God, thank you for bringing us all here together. Remember Everett. And we all remember very well, very happy. I know that's how he feels right now. So let this word go out to God for our action. Peace and love forever and so on. Thank you all for being here. And I'm sure Everett is looking down and saying, well, thanks, Bud.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Very good. Okay, well, there's lots of drink and lots of food, so everybody go dig in. We don't want to have all this food